The information provided in this presentation is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute formal career counseling, financial advising, legal, or business advice. The career landscape, particularly within the digital marketing and social media sectors in the United States, is highly volatile and subject to rapid shifts in technology, corporate algorithm updates, and shifting market demand. Any historical trends, case studies, or potential outcomes discussed are merely illustrative and do not serve as guarantees of future performance, employment placement, or specific salary milestones. Viewers are strongly advised to conduct their own extensive due diligence, research current macroeconomic market conditions, and consult with certified career professionals before making any significant educational, financial, or career transitions. Your individual success depends entirely on your unique skills, market timing, risk tolerance, and personal effort. Let me start with a statement that might make a lot of people currently working in the marketing world very uncomfortable. If your goal is to become a social media manager in the United States in 2026, and your entire professional strategy relies on passively scheduling posts, writing generic captions, and blindly following viral audio trends, you are already professionally obsolete. You are competing for entry-level wages in an industry that is rapidly automating those exact tactical tasks out of existence. Generative artificial intelligence and advanced machine learning models have fundamentally commoditized basic digital content distribution. Yet, paradoxically, the corporate demand for high-level, strategically minded social media professionals has never been more intense, and the compensation packages for the right individuals are reaching unprecedented historical trends. We are currently witnessing a massive, permanent bifurcation in the modern labor market. The low-end execution roles are vanishing, swallowed entirely by algorithmic generation and automated scheduling workflows, while the top 20% of practitioners, the individuals who actually understand audience behavioral psychology, complex community architecture, and data-driven revenue generation, are commanding mid to high six-figure salaries with complete remote autonomy. Consider a recent case study from the previous fiscal year involving a mid-sized financial technology startup based in Austin, Texas. This organization systematically eliminated their entire three-person social media coordination team. Those 3 employees were costing the enterprise roughly $150,000 annually in combined baseline salaries, and their primary output consisted of generic industry updates and repurposed cultural memes that generated absolutely zero measurable return on investment or customer acquisition. The company subsequently replaced that entire department with one single senior social media strategist, compensating that individual with a base salary of $120,000 a year. Within a 6-month window, that single strategist, leveraging sophisticated automation tools for the heavy lifting and focusing their human capital entirely on deep community engagement and high-leverage conversion campaigns, increased the company's inbound lead generation through social channels by an astonishing 400%. The difference in this case study was not a matter of working longer hours. It was a fundamental shift in understanding what the modern social media role actually entails in the contemporary digital economy. The shocking reality confronting most job seekers today is that the majority of academic marketing programs, university degrees, and expensive online certificates are still actively teaching the isolated tactics of the early 2020s. They are preparing students for job descriptions that simply no longer exist, setting them up for massive career frustration and financial strain. The open loop you must consider right now, the vital question you must ask yourself is this: what exactly does that senior strategist know that the 3 fired coordinators did not? How did they successfully insulate themselves from the artificial intelligence wave and position themselves as an irreplaceable revenue driver, rather than an easily expendable corporate overhead expense? If you do not intimately understand the mechanics behind that specific shift, you are stepping onto a highly competitive corporate battlefield without armor. But if you can master the specific underlying architecture of modern social media management, you are looking at one of the most lucrative, dynamic, and highly sought-after skill sets in the modern American workforce. Let us delve deeper into the macroeconomic factors driving this harsh reality. In 2026, the digital attention economy is arguably the most fiercely contested battleground in global commerce. Major multinational corporations, mid-level enterprises, and local domestic businesses alike are completely dependent on digital visibility for their basic survival. The cost of traditional digital advertising, specifically pay-per-click networks and sponsored social posts, has skyrocketed due to market saturation, severely diminishing profit margins across the board. Because paid customer acquisition has become prohibitively expensive for many brands, The reliance on organic social media reach, strategic digital partnerships, and community-led growth has fully transitioned from a supplementary marketing tactic to a core corporate survival mechanism. This critical macroeconomic shift means that a highly competent social media manager is no longer viewed by executives as a junior marketing assistant. They are viewed as the primary gatekeeper to the brand's public perception and the foundational pillar of the customer acquisition pipeline. However, the barrier to entry into this field has simultaneously dropped to zero, while the barrier to sustained success has risen to an all-time high. Anyone with a smartphone can download an application and label themselves a digital creator, but very few individuals possess the intense analytical rigor required to accurately read a cross-channel attribution report. Even fewer possess the psychological insight to build a highly engaged digital microcommunity from scratch, or the technical proficiency to navigate an ecosystem where algorithms rewrite their own operational rules on a weekly basis. You are not simply fighting against other human applicants. You are fighting against the rapidly shrinking attention spans of the American consumer, the relentless, deafening noise of global digital content, and the sophisticated machine learning models that ruthlessly decide what content lives and what content dies. This is the high-stakes, high-reward environment you are preparing to enter. It is no longer about posting aesthetically pleasing visual media. It is about engineering complex digital ecosystems that systematically capture human attention, build deep consumer trust, and ultimately drive sustainable, measurable financial action. That precise landscape brings us to the core problem we are going to meticulously solve for you today. You are likely engaging with this material because you recognize the immense potential of a career in the modern social media industry. You desire the remote geographical flexibility, the continuous creative fulfillment, and the robust financial stability that inherently comes from working in a high-growth technological sector. But you are simultaneously overwhelmed and paralyzed by the sheer volume of conflicting, outdated information heavily polluting the internet. You do not know which specific social platforms to prioritize in your studies, which technical skills are actually marketable to modern employers, how to build a compelling professional portfolio when you currently possess absolutely no active client experience, or how to successfully navigate the complex multi-stage interview processes of top-tier American corporations. This comprehensive masterclass is specifically designed to tear down that confusion and provide you with a granular, step-by-step educational roadmap to becoming a highly paid, highly respected social media manager in the current year. We are going to build your professional foundation from the absolute ground up, focusing exclusively on the core scientific principles of digital strategy that remain completely consistent regardless of which specific software application is currently dominating the App Store charts. Throughout this extensive guide, we will dissect the exact anatomical makeup of a top-tier social media professional. We will thoroughly cover the specific technical skills you must aggressively acquire, ranging from quantitative data analytics and behavioral attribution, modeling to digital crisis management and cross-platform narrative storytelling. We will explore extensive historical trends to show you exactly how this specific corporate role has evolved over the past decade, allowing you to accurately anticipate where the industry is moving next. We will provide detailed, actionable case studies of individuals who successfully transitioned from completely unrelated professional fields, such as retail management, public education, and administrative support, into highly lucrative digital marketing roles within a matter of months by leveraging a highly specific, targeted portfolio strategy. Furthermore, you will learn the precise methodology to completely bypass the traditional, highly saturated resume application process. Instead, you will discover how to position your distinct value proposition directly in front of the executive decision-makers who are currently desperate for your specific, modernized skill set. We will break down the exact daily operational workflows of highly successful managers, detailing precisely how they structure their limited time, which enterprise-level software tools they actually deploy for social listening and predictive trend analysis, and exactly how they report their key performance indicators to executive boards to continuously prove their return on investment and fiercely justify their advanced compensation packages. By the conclusion of this extensive deep dive, you will firmly understand this field as a rigorous, data-driven discipline, armed with a clear, actionable blueprint to build your authority and secure your place in this dynamic industry. To truly dominate this landscape, you must first recognize the most profound paradigm shift that has occurred in consumer behavior this year. In 2026, the traditional text-based search engine is rapidly losing its absolute monopoly on human curiosity. The modern American consumer is no longer typing queries into a blank search bar, and scrolling through pages of blue hyperlinks or dense corporate blog posts. Instead, social media platforms have fully transformed into the primary knowledge engines of the digital age. Users are treating video platforms as visual search engines, demanding immediate, human-led, and highly structured answers to their most pressing questions. If your brand strategy still relies on treating social channels merely as digital billboards for one-way broadcasting, you are essentially invisible to the modern buyer. You must fundamentally restructure your entire approach to content creation, shifting from performance-based virality to intent-based problem-solving. Imagine a scenario playing out millions of times a day across the United States. Consider a consumer named Marcus, a young professional living in Chicago in 2026. Marcus wants to understand the complex tax implications of a new freelance business he just started. A few years ago, he might have spent hours reading dry financial articles. Today, Marcus opens a short-form video application and searches for freelance tax strategies directly within the platform. He does not want a polished television commercial. He wants a clear, structured, and visually engaging breakdown. He immediately finds a video from a specialized financial software company. The social media manager behind this brand did not just post a random meme. They engineered a highly specific piece of content optimized for social search. They placed exact match keywords in the spoken script, embedded contextual phrases in the on-screen closed captions, and utilized precise metadata tags that allowed the platform algorithms to perfectly match the video with Marcus and his high-intent search query. Marcus watches a 90-second tutorial that clearly solves his immediate problem, builds instant trust, and ends with the seamless in-app checkout process for the company software. That single interaction, multiplied by thousands of daily searches, creates a massive, highly measurable revenue pipeline. The professional who orchestrated that sequence is not an entry-level intern scheduling posts. They are a high-value search architect commanding a premium six-figure salary. This level of precision is only possible because of the second massive reality of the 2026 digital economy. Artificial intelligence has moved completely past the experimental phase and is now the mandatory operating system for every top-tier marketing department. In previous years, AI was heavily utilized as a simple shortcut for drafting basic captions or brainstorming simple ideas. Today, the most successful social media managers do not manually execute every single microtask. They act as strategic directors managing vast networks of autonomous AI agents. These managers deploy predictive machine learning models to analyze 3 years of competitor engagement data in a matter of seconds, instantly identifying the precise visual frameworks that retain human attention past the critical 3-second mark. They utilize agentic artificial intelligence to automatically generate 20 different variations of a video hook, test them simultaneously in real-time paid media campaigns, and dynamically shift the advertising budget toward the highest performing asset without any manual human intervention. If you refuse to aggressively adopt these deeply technical, AI-integrated workflows, you will be swiftly replaced by a single professional who uses these tools to do the work of an entire legacy agency. However, this widespread technological acceleration has created a fascinating paradox that you must leverage to your absolute advantage. Because generative tools have reduced the barrier of content creation to zero, the internet is currently drowning in a deafening ocean of mediocre, synthetic noise. Consumers are experiencing severe digital fatigue, and they are actively rebelling against hyper-polished robotic content. This has triggered what industry analysts are calling the Great Quality Reset of 2026. The most lucrative social media strategies have completely abandoned the chaotic, high-volume posting schedules designed to trick outdated algorithms. Instead, the focus has shifted entirely to deep community architecture and serialized, human-centric storytelling. Consider a recent case study involving a mid-sized consumer packaged goods brand based in Ohio. They completely halted their strategy of posting daily, polished product photos. Instead, their newly hired senior strategist launched a weekly, unedited, direct-to-camera video series featuring the actual warehouse workers and supply chain managers discussing the realities of building the business. The content was visually imperfect, but it was deeply authentic. They transitioned their audience into a private, gated community platform where top consumers could directly influence product development and chat with the founders. By prioritizing deep resonance over shallow reach, this strategist increased the lifetime value of their customer base by over 200%. They proved that in an era of artificial abundance, raw human authenticity is the ultimate premium commodity. This brings us to the harsh financial reality of the modern job market. You can no longer survive financially as a digital generalist. If you enter the current labor pool presenting yourself merely as a general social media manager who knows how to post on various platforms, you will be forced to compete in a race to the bottom, battling millions of global applicants for baseline salaries hovering around $50,000 a year. The corporate world does not pay a premium for basic digital literacy anymore. The wealth in this industry is entirely concentrated in extreme specialization. If you instead position yourself as a short-form video conversion strategist for business-to-business software companies, or a paid social architect for direct-to-consumer healthcare brands, your perceived market value skyrockets instantly. We are currently seeing these hyper-specialized professionals command base salaries well over $120,000 in major metropolitan hubs, often securing highly lucrative profit-sharing agreements because they can directly tie their specific daily actions to top-line corporate revenue growth. They speak the specific language of their niche industry, they understand the exact regulatory constraints of their field, and they know exactly how to guide a highly skeptical consumer from initial platform discovery to final financial transaction. But understanding these massive macroeconomic trends and theoretical architectures is only the very first step of your journey. Knowing that social channels are now search engines, or that artificial intelligence is a mandatory operational layer, will not generate a single dollar of income if you do not know the exact step-by-step mechanical execution required to build these campaigns from scratch. You might understand that short-form video is the dominant vehicle of modern commerce, but how do you actually write a script that physically forces a highly distracted, cynical consumer to stop scrolling within the first 50 milliseconds? How do you scientifically construct a visual narrative that holds their volatile attention through the entire presentation? And more importantly, how do you execute a psychological transition that converts that fleeting viewership into a concrete, measurable financial action without ever sounding like a traditional, desperate salesperson? The proprietary psychological formulas used by the most ruthless and effective digital agencies to capture and monetize human attention are fiercely guarded secrets, completely ignored by traditional academic institutions. But we are about to systematically break down every single one of them. To break down these secrets, we must first dissect the fundamental physics of digital attention in 2026. The average American consumer is exposed to thousands of distinct pieces of media every single day. Their brain has evolved a highly sophisticated defense mechanism against this constant bombardment, automatically filtering out anything that looks, sounds, or feels like a traditional advertisement. You no longer have 3 seconds to capture a viewer. Historical trends and recent eye tracking data indicate you have exactly 50 milliseconds to interrupt their autonomic scrolling pattern. If your video begins with a slow fade-in, a static corporate logo, or a generic greeting, the user is gone before you finish your first syllable. The master social media manager understands that the hook is not just the first sentence of the script. It is a meticulously engineered combination of sudden visual movement, unexpected auditory stimuli, and immediate high-stakes context. Imagine, if you will, Sarah, a 32-year-old software engineer living in Seattle in the year 2026. Sarah has just finished a brutal 10-hour shift and is mindlessly swiping through her short-form video feed. She is in a state of passive consumption, her brain seeking easy entertainment while actively rejecting anything that requires intense cognitive effort. She swipes past a beautifully produced car commercial. She swipes past a real estate agent awkwardly pointing at text bubbles. Then her thumb stops. Why? Because the very first frame of the next video does not look like a marketing asset. It starts mid-action. The camera is slightly unstable, mimicking native user-generated content. A person is holding a seemingly mundane object, a broken ceramic coffee cup, close to the lens, and the immediate spoken audio says, "Why this shattered mug cost me my corporate job." This visual and auditory combination instantly shatters Sarah's scrolling rhythm. The broken mug is a visual anomaly. The audio presents a high-stakes, highly specific conflict. It opens a psychological loop in her mind that absolutely must be closed. She needs to know the context of the shattered cup, and more importantly, she needs to know how it led to a massive life consequence. This is the anatomical structure of a perfect 2026 hook. It is not about yelling at the camera. It is about weaponizing human curiosity through calculated pattern interrupts. Capturing that initial 50 milliseconds of attention is relatively straightforward once you understand the mechanics of the pattern interrupt, but holding that volatile attention for the subsequent 60 to 90 seconds requires an entirely different operational framework. This is where the concept of micronarrative architecture becomes critical. In previous years, creators relied on fast jump cuts and chaotic background noise to artificially stimulate the viewer. But by 2026, the American consumer has developed a deep immunity to this overstimulating editing style. They find it exhausting and inauthentic. Today, the most effective retention strategy relies on dynamic pacing and compounding micro-resolutions. Every single sentence spoken in your script must serve one of two exact purposes. It must either introduce a new, fascinating variable into the story, or it must partially resolve the initial conflict while immediately establishing a secondary, deeper conflict. If you allow even 3 seconds of dead air, repetitive information, or unnecessary corporate jargon, the audience retention will plummet. Historical trends from the past 4 years show a massive migration away from highly polished, broadcast-style content toward raw, serialized storytelling. The modern viewer wants to feel like they are an active participant in an unfolding journey, not a passive recipient of a pre-packaged corporate lecture. Shutterstock. Consider a prominent business-to-business logistics software company operating out of Atlanta this year. For months, their internal marketing team struggled to generate any meaningful traction on their primary social channels. Their content consisted entirely of highly produced, clinical demonstrations of their software dashboard, narrated by professional voiceover artists. The data was catastrophic. Their average view duration was less than 4 seconds. They fundamentally misunderstood the psychology of their target demographic. They brought in a specialized social media strategist who completely dismantled this legacy approach. The strategist realized that logistics managers, their highly specific target audience, did not care about software features. They cared about surviving real-world supply chain crises. The strategist launched a new video series featuring the actual, exhausted logistics managers of their client companies, sitting in their real warehouses, telling chaotic stories about massive shipping disasters they narrowly avoided. The software was never explicitly pitched. It was simply the invisible tool that allowed these professionals to survive the chaos. By shifting the focus from the corporate product to the human narrative, the average view duration skyrocketed to over 45 seconds, and inbound enterprise leads increased exponentially. This perfectly illustrates the raw financial power of narrative architecture over traditional promotion. This brings us to the most delicate and lucrative skill a social media manager must master: the seamless transition from retained attention to measurable financial action. If you successfully capture Sarah's attention with a brilliant hook, and you retain her attention with an engaging micronarrative, but you fail to convert her into a tangible business asset, you have merely created free entertainment, not a corporate marketing strategy. However, the traditional call to action, the aggressive command to click the link in the biography, subscribe immediately, or buy today, is largely dead in 2026. Consumers are hyper-aware of these manipulative tactics and will instantly swipe away the moment they feel they are being actively sold to. The modern conversion relies on the psychological principle of aligned incentives and value-based friction reduction. You do not tell the viewer what to do. You present a highly desirable, immediate solution to the exact problem you just spent 60 seconds exposing, and you make the acquisition of that solution the absolute path of least resistance. For example, returning to our logistics software scenario, the successful videos did not end with a massive graphic demanding the viewer sign up for an expensive software trial. Instead, the final sentence of the narrative casually mentioned that the exact crisis management checklist used by the warehouse manager in the story was available as a free, downloadable template on their platform. The call to action was framed entirely as an act of service, a natural extension of the value already provided in the video. The friction was entirely removed. The viewer did not feel like they were entering a corporate sales funnel. They felt like they were accessing a secret operational resource. This subtle pivot in phrasing is the difference between a conversion rate of 0.1% and a conversion rate of 5%. In the context of a video with 1 million views, that tiny psychological shift translates to tens of thousands of newly acquired customer profiles and potentially millions of dollars in downstream corporate revenue. This is exactly why top-tier social media managers are compensated so heavily in the modern economy. They are not merely posting videos. They are architecting highly sophisticated psychological funnels that systematically guide human behavior at scale. Now that you understand the exact scientific methodology required to capture human attention, manipulate narrative pacing for maximum retention, and execute high-converting value-based calls to action, you possess the theoretical framework of a top 1% digital strategist. You understand the profound psychological differences between a high-value search architect and an obsolete content scheduler. But possessing this theoretical knowledge presents a massive, immediate logistical problem. How exactly do you prove to a cynical, highly analytical corporate hiring manager that you actually possess these skills if your current resume consists entirely of unrelated retail experience or entry-level administrative work? How do you convince a prominent executive to hand you the keys to their multi-million-dollar digital brand when you have zero official agency background and absolutely no high-profile clients to list on a traditional job application? The stark reality is that submitting a standard, text-heavy resume through an automated corporate job portal in 2026 is a path to immediate rejection, as those algorithms are specifically designed to filter out non-traditional applicants regardless of their actual talent. If you want to secure these elite, high-paying remote positions, you have to completely bypass the traditional human resources department and deploy a radical, highly aggressive portfolio strategy that absolutely forces executive decision-makers to pay attention to you. The traditional corporate resume is a passive, fundamentally flawed document that merely tells the company what you claim to have done in the past. In the hyper-competitive landscape of 2026, forward-thinking American corporations do not care about your past. They care exclusively about what specific, revenue-generating architecture you can build for them tomorrow. This is exactly where the concept of the permissionless portfolio becomes your ultimate leverage point. A permissionless portfolio is not a generic website filled with fabricated student projects or theoretical essays about marketing. It is a highly targeted, custom-built strategic audit and execution plan designed exclusively for one single target company. You are essentially doing the job before you ever ask for the job, proving your undeniable competence through upfront value creation, rather than asking a hiring manager to take a massive financial risk on your potential. Imagine a 24-year-old former retail manager named David living in Denver, Colorado. David wants to manage social media for a rapidly growing outdoor apparel brand headquartered in California. He possesses no formal marketing degree, absolutely zero corporate clients, and no traditional agency experience. If David submits his standard resume through their automated job portal, the algorithmic tracking system will immediately discard his application because he lacks a bachelor's degree in communications and 5 years of mandated corporate experience. Instead, David bypasses the human resources portal entirely. He spends 72 rigorous hours executing a forensic digital audit of the brand's current social media ecosystem. He manually downloads their last 3 months of short-form video content and maps out their exact posting frequency. He identifies the specific narrative hooks they are attempting to use and calculates their estimated engagement to conversion ratio based on public metrics. During this intensive process, David discovers a massive leak in their digital sales funnel. He realizes their videos generate decent top-of-funnel awareness, but completely fail to utilize intent-based search optimization. Their captions lack critical metadata, and their visual hooks do not address the specific, high-intent search queries of winter hikers looking for thermal gear. David does not stop at merely pointing out these strategic flaws in a polite email. He actually builds the proprietary solution. He scripts, films, and edits 5 completely original, high-converting short-form videos tailored exactly to their new product line, utilizing the precise micronarrative architecture and pattern interrupts we discussed previously. He writes out the exact metadata, the precise search-optimized captions, and detailed community management guidelines for responding to consumer comments on these specific videos. He packages all of this highly valuable intellectual property into a sleek, professional digital presentation. He titles it a Q3 social search strategy to increase direct-to-consumer conversions by an estimated 15%. Now, David does not send this valuable asset to the general hiring email address. He utilizes professional networking platforms to identify the chief marketing officer and the vice president of digital growth at this specific apparel company. He sends a concise, highly personalized direct message directly to these executives. He does not beg for an interview or ask for a job. He simply states that he noticed a specific, costly gap in their social search retention strategy and built a custom framework to solve it, including 5 ready-to-publish video assets they can have entirely for free, regardless of whether they ever speak to him. Historical trends from the modern recruiting landscape show that executive decision-makers are absolutely starved for proactive, strategic talent. When the chief marketing officer opens David's presentation, they are no longer looking at an unqualified applicant. They are looking at a highly competent professional who just solved an immediate corporate anxiety. In this case study scenario, David secures a remote interview within 48 hours and is hired within 14 days as a mid-level strategist. He completely skips the entry-level coordination tier, commanding a starting base salary of $85,000 a year, all because he proved his market value through undeniable permissionless proof of work. To replicate this specific outcome, you must treat your personal job hunt as your very first high-stakes social media campaign. Your target audience is exactly 5 to 10 executive decision-makers at companies you deeply understand. Let us meticulously break down the exact analytical framework you must utilize to audit a potential employer for your permissionless portfolio. First, you must execute a competitive whitespace analysis. This involves identifying their top 3 direct market competitors and deeply analyzing where those competitors are successfully capturing consumer attention that your target brand is completely missing. Are the competitors dominating long-form educational content on video platforms, while your target brand is only posting static, outdated images? Document this discrepancy with brutal data-driven clarity. Show the executives exactly how much market share they are bleeding to their rivals every single day they delay modernizing their strategy. Second, you must conduct an algorithmic alignment check. In 2026, every major social platform heavily prioritizes specific native features to keep users on their application longer. If a platform is aggressively pushing conversational community threads or native live streaming, but your target brand is only broadcasting promotional outbound links that take users off the platform, they are actively fighting the algorithm and burning immense corporate capital for zero return. You must document exactly how much organic reach they are losing through these outdated tactics, and provide a mathematical projection of what they could potentially gain by realigning their content cadence with current native platform behaviors. Third, you must execute a qualitative consumer sentiment analysis. Do not simply look at the raw view counts or follower numbers, as those are easily manipulated vanity metrics. Read the actual comment sections across their entire digital footprint. What are the actual consumers consistently complaining about? What specific product questions remain repeatedly unanswered by the current social media team? If you can identify a recurring consumer frustration in the comment sections and build a proposed content series that systematically addresses and resolves that exact frustration, you have essentially handed the executive team a blueprint for massive brand loyalty and customer retention. You have now constructed a devastatingly effective permissionless portfolio. You have completely bypassed the automated resume filters, and you have successfully captured the undivided attention of a high-level corporate executive. You have secured the initial remote interview. But this is exactly where 90% of self-taught social media managers completely self-destruct and lose the opportunity. When you finally get onto that remote video call with the chief marketing officer, they are not going to ask you how to edit a trending video or how to write a clever caption. They are going to test your ability to survive a massive digital public relations crisis and manage a multi-million-dollar advertising budget under extreme executive pressure. If you attempt to answer their complex corporate strategy questions using the mindset and vocabulary of a freelance solo creator, they will immediately terminate the interview. You must learn how to fluently speak the highly specific, data-driven language of the modern corporate boardroom, and you must know exactly how to defend your strategies against highly skeptical corporate stakeholders. To successfully navigate this critical transition from applicant to executive partner, you must first completely abandon the vocabulary of the digital creator and adopt the quantitative dialect of the corporate finance department. Executives do not care about likes, comments, shares, or follower milestones. Those are vanity metrics that look impressive on a personal profile, but hold absolutely zero intrinsic value on a corporate balance sheet. When a chief financial officer looks at a marketing department, they see an expense line item, and their primary biological imperative is to minimize corporate expenses. Therefore, your absolute priority in any high-level interview is to mathematically prove how your specific social media strategy functions as a measurable revenue engine, rather than a financial liability. You must seamlessly integrate terms like customer acquisition cost, lifetime value, and return on ad spend into your casual conversational repertoire. If a hiring manager asks you how you plan to grow their digital presence, and your response involves simply posting more consistently or following audio trends, you have already lost the position. Instead, your response must sound entirely analytical. You must state that your initial objective is to decrease their current customer acquisition costs by optimizing top-of-funnel organic video reach, thereby increasing the overall efficiency of their paid media budget. This is the exact moment the executive stops viewing you as a social media coordinator and starts viewing you as a strategic business partner. Imagine a scenario involving Jessica, a 28-year-old applicant living in New York City in the current year, 2026. Jessica has secured a final round remote interview with the chief operating officer of a rapidly scaling financial technology firm. This executive is notoriously skeptical of social media, viewing it entirely as a frivolous playground rather than a serious customer acquisition channel. During the interview, the executive bluntly challenges Jessica, stating that they prefer to spend their $10 million annual marketing budget entirely on traditional search engine marketing because the return is highly predictable. A novice applicant would become defensive or try to argue that social media is simply the future. Jessica, however, understands corporate leverage. She immediately pivots the conversation to incrementality testing and media mix modeling. She explains that traditional search engine marketing is phenomenal for capturing existing consumer intent, but it is completely incapable of generating new consumer demand. She proposes a highly structured, 90-day closed-loop attribution test. She outlines a plan to allocate exactly 5% of the total marketing budget toward a highly targeted, serialized short-form video campaign designed specifically to educate young professionals about their specific financial software. Furthermore, she commits to tracking the exact conversion rate of the users who watch those videos compared to the users who only see the traditional search advertisements. By framing her creative strategy as a controlled, risk-mitigated financial experiment, she entirely disarms the skeptical executive. She does not ask for blind trust. She asks for an analytical test, which is the exact framework executives use to make multimillion-dollar decisions every single day. The second critical pillar of the modern corporate interview is the disaster scenario test. In 2026, corporate reputation management is arguably the most terrifying aspect of a chief executive officer's daily existence. The velocity at which a brand can be fundamentally destroyed by a localized digital crisis is unprecedented. Therefore, the hiring committee will inevitably present you with a catastrophic hypothetical situation. They want to see if you possess the emotional regulation and the tactical foresight to protect their primary asset during a public relations nightmare. You must understand that in a moment of corporate crisis, silence is perceived as guilt, but a rushed, emotionally defensive response is corporate suicide. Consider Michael, an applicant in Miami interviewing for a prominent domestic airline company. The interview panel presents him with this scenario. A passenger has just uploaded a highly edited, extremely negative video of a severe altercation with a gate agent. The video is actively trending, major news outlets are beginning to embed the footage in their online articles, and the company's stock price has dipped 0.5% in the last 2 hours. The hiring manager asks Michael what his immediate course of action is. A terrible answer is immediately posting a public apology or defensively explaining the airline's official policy. Michael provides the elite strategic answer. He details a sequential multi-layered crisis mitigation protocol. First, he immediately pauses all automated, outbound promotional social media campaigns across every single platform to prevent the brand from appearing tone-deaf while a crisis is actively unfolding. Second, he activates enterprise-level social listening software to isolate the specific geographical velocity of the negative sentiment and determine if the anger is contained to a vocal minority or spreading to their core loyalty members. Third, he establishes a direct communication channel with the internal legal and customer service departments to verify the factual events before drafting any external messaging. Finally, he creates a specialized dark post campaign, which is a targeted advertisement that does not appear on the main brand timeline, specifically directed at frequent flyer members to reassure their most valuable customers without drawing additional public attention to the trending controversy. Michael demonstrates that he is not just a content creator. He is a sophisticated digital crisis architect capable of shielding a multi-billion-dollar enterprise from severe reputational damage. Beyond speaking the language of finance and navigating severe public relations crises, you must also be prepared to rigorously defend your specific tool stack and daily operational budget. You will be interrogated on precisely which enterprise software solutions you require to execute your vision and exactly how much those licenses cost. You cannot merely suggest using native platform analytics, as those dashboards are notoriously flawed and aggressively biased toward the platform's own success metrics. You must be fluent in discussing third-party attribution software, predictive analytics dashboards, and customer relationship management integrations. You must be fluent in discussing the profound differences between first-click attribution, last-click attribution, and complex multi-touch attribution models. In 2026, the modern American consumer rarely purchases a high-ticket item or subscribes to a software platform after watching a single video. The buyer journey is deeply fragmented, often requiring 12 to 15 distinct digital touchpoints across 4 different platforms before a final financial transaction occurs. If you only understand native analytics, you will falsely attribute a massive sale to a simple branded search query, completely ignoring the deeply engaging short-form video the consumer watched on a completely different platform 3 weeks prior that originally sparked their intent. You must explain to the hiring committee how you will implement cross-channel tracking protocols to accurately measure the hidden return on investment of your brand awareness campaigns. When you present this level of sophisticated data architecture, you are completely removing the emotional guesswork from marketing. You are transforming social media from a subjective art form into an objective, predictable science. You must be able to confidently explain why spending $3,000 a month on a highly advanced audience intelligence tool will actually save the company $50,000 a quarter in wasted advertising spend by drastically reducing ad fatigue and audience saturation. Your ability to map your requested resources directly to projected corporate savings or revenue generation is what ultimately justifies a high compensation package. If you successfully navigate this intense corporate interrogation, if you systematically prove that you understand customer acquisition cost, crisis mitigation protocols, and advanced tool stack architecture, you will absolutely secure the position. You will negotiate a highly lucrative salary, you will receive your corporate laptop, and you will officially become a senior social media manager in the modern United States economy. But the moment you sign that employment contract, the theoretical interview ends, and the brutal reality of the corporate machine begins. You are now solely responsible for generating measurable financial results within a highly compressed time frame. Executive leadership will demand immediate, skyrocketing engagement numbers, completely ignoring the fact that algorithmic training and deep community building take significant time to yield organic results. The pressure will be immense, the expectations will be entirely unrealistic, and the clock starts aggressively ticking the very second you log into your new corporate email account. How exactly do you survive your first 90 days in this high-pressure environment without burning out or being terminated for failing to meet impossible initial expectations? How do you successfully manage the expectations of a demanding chief executive officer while simultaneously building a sustainable, long-term digital architecture from the absolute ground up? The blueprint for surviving and dominating the critical probationary period of your new career requires a highly specific, highly defensive operational framework. The defensive operational framework begins the exact moment you step into the building or log into the remote corporate server on day one. Most junior marketers make the catastrophic mistake of trying to prove their worth immediately by rushing to produce a highly stylized, viral piece of media within their very first week of employment. This is corporate suicide. If you somehow succeed, you have just set an impossible, mathematically unsustainable precedent for every subsequent week, and when the viewership numbers inevitably normalize to the baseline, you will be viewed by executives as a failing, depreciating asset. If you fail to hit those massive numbers out of the gate, you instantly lose the trust of the leadership team who just authorized your salary. Therefore, your first 30 days must be treated as a strict, unapologetic diagnostic quarantine. You are not there to be a loud, chaotic creator. You are there to be a silent, clinical business auditor. You must freeze the existing, likely broken content calendar, and execute a comprehensive forensic analysis of the previous 2 years of corporate marketing data. You need to establish the exact historical trends and baseline metrics of the brand before you touch a single publishing button or spend a single dollar of their advertising budget. Imagine, if you will, a scenario involving Thomas, a newly appointed senior social media manager for an emerging commercial real estate firm based in Phoenix, Arizona, in 2026. On his third day, the highly aggressive chief executive officer demands a massive short-form video campaign to capitalize on a recent zoning law change. The executive wants millions of immediate impressions by Friday to secure new investors. A novice applicant would panic, hastily film a rushed video, and pray to the algorithmic gods for reach. Thomas, however, deploys his defensive operational framework. He enters the boardroom not with a camera and a ring light, but with a predictive data model. He mathematically demonstrates to the executive board that the company's previous attempts at rapid, newsjacking virality over the past 3 years resulted in a massive influx of unqualified, low-intent digital traffic that completely overwhelmed their internal sales team, frustrated real buyers, and actually decreased overall commercial conversion rates for those respective quarters. Thomas uses this undeniable data to fundamentally reset the executive expectations. He shifts the immediate core key performance indicator away from useless vanity impressions and redirects their focus entirely toward qualified lead velocity and long-term search retention. By doing this, Thomas successfully diffuses an impossible, high-stress demand and permanently establishes himself as a strategic gatekeeper of corporate resources rather than a subordinate order taker. Once you have successfully managed the initial executive anxiety and established your true baseline metrics during that crucial first month, you transition into the second phase of your probationary period, which is the systemic implementation of high-leverage quick wins. You absolutely must put tangible financial numbers on the board by day 60 to validate your advanced compensation package, but you must do it without relying on the deeply unpredictable nature of organic platform algorithms. This is precisely where you audit and repair the invisible digital infrastructure of the brand. In 2026, the vast majority of corporate social media profiles are functionally broken at the conversion level. They suffer from confusing biographies, broken external routing links, disjointed visual branding, and absolutely zero automated direct message capture funnels. You can generate a massive potential outcome simply by fixing these silent, ignored leaks in the corporate pipeline. Consider the detailed case study of Elena, a digital strategist recently hired by a multi-state corporate wellness and physical therapy brand operating out of Denver, Colorado. During her second month of employment, Elena completely paused all public-facing video production. Instead of chasing trends, she spent 3 uninterrupted weeks integrating a sophisticated, intent-based conversational artificial intelligence agent directly into the brand's private messaging channels across all platforms. During her initial audit, she noticed that the company was receiving hundreds of direct messages a week from corporate human resources directors asking for enterprise pricing packages. But because the previous social media team only manually checked messages once every few days, these highly lucrative, warm leads were going entirely cold and moving to competitors. Elena built an automated conversational tree that instantly engaged these specific leads, naturally answered their basic pricing questions, and directly booked qualified sales consultations onto the calendars of the senior account executives 24 hours a day. By the end of her 60th day, without publishing a single new video, photograph, or public caption, Elena increased the social media department's measurable revenue contribution by an astonishing 42%. She engineered a highly predictable, mathematically sound quick win that bought her immense political capital and the necessary corporate runway to eventually launch her slower, long-term organic narrative strategies. By the time you reach your third month, days 61 through 90, you have established a data-backed operational baseline, you have thoroughly repaired the broken conversion infrastructure, and you have earned the absolute, unwavering trust of the leadership team. Only at this specific juncture are you politically and financially safe to finally launch the highly produced, serialized micronarrative content we discussed in previous sections. You are no longer carelessly throwing expensive content into a digital void. You are now intentionally pouring highly targeted consumer traffic into a meticulously optimized, automated conversion machine. You can confidently present your first quarterly review to the executive board, showing exactly how your structural architectural changes directly impacted the bottom line and reduced their overall customer acquisition cost. You have survived the most dangerous period of your modern employment and fully solidified your position as an indispensable economic driver. However, just as you finalize this flawless operational framework and begin to see the compounding financial returns of your strategic architecture, you will inevitably encounter the most terrifying, entirely uncontrollable variable in the modern digital landscape. You have built a highly lucrative consumer acquisition machine, but you have built it entirely on rented digital land. The brutal historical trends of the past 5 years clearly show that social media networks are highly volatile, politically scrutinized corporate entities that ruthlessly change their fundamental operating rules without any prior warning. What exactly happens when the primary video platform currently driving 80% of your corporate revenue decides to drastically throttle organic reach for commercial accounts in an effort to force you to purchase more advertising space? What happens when a sudden sweeping federal data privacy regulation in 2026 legally mandates the immediate removal of highly targeted behavioral tracking, instantly blinding your sophisticated artificial intelligence agents? Or even more severely, what happens when a platform is entirely banned or permanently removed from domestic application stores due to unforeseen geopolitical conflicts? You can be the most brilliant digital strategist in the United States, but if your entire consumer audience is locked behind a third-party platform algorithm that you do not legally own, your entire career and your company's revenue pipeline can be completely erased overnight. If you do not possess a highly aggressive extraction protocol to seamlessly migrate that rented consumer attention into proprietary, owned digital assets, you are operating on a ticking time bomb. How exactly do you build this crucial defensive perimeter to ensure your digital community remains yours regardless of what Silicon Valley software engineers or Washington legislators dictate? The exact architectural blueprint for building this crucial defensive perimeter revolves entirely around a concept known in elite corporate strategy as audience extraction and zero-party data acquisition. To understand the gravity of this protocol, you must first accept that every single follower, subscriber, and viewer you accumulate on a public social media platform is essentially a rented asset. You do not own that relationship, the platform does. The platform merely grants you temporary, algorithmic access to those individuals as long as your content serves their primary corporate objective, which is maximizing overall user session length. The very second your corporate agenda conflicts with their algorithmic agenda, or the moment legislative action disrupts their operational model, your access to that audience is instantly severed. Therefore, the ultimate mandate of a senior social media manager in 2026 is not simply to aggregate attention, but to systematically extract that attention off the native platform and migrate it into proprietary owned digital infrastructure where you dictate the absolute rules of engagement. This process requires a complete psychological shift in how you view lead generation. In previous decades, digital marketers relied heavily on third-party data, essentially purchasing vast, invisible profiles of consumer behavior tracked across the internet via browser cookies. However, sweeping data privacy legislation and advanced mobile operating system updates have fundamentally destroyed that tracking ecosystem. In 2026, the only truly reliable and legally compliant information is zero-party data. This is highly specific, personal, and contextual data that a consumer actively and intentionally hands over to your brand in exchange for immediate, tangible value. You cannot simply ask an audience to subscribe to a corporate newsletter. Historical trends have conclusively proven that the modern American consumer violently rejects the concept of a newsletter, viewing it entirely as an open invitation for relentless corporate spam. Instead, you must engineer high-leverage microtools and proprietary digital assets that solve a painful, specific problem so effectively that the consumer is eager to provide their direct contact information to access it. Imagine a highly skilled digital strategist named Rachel, working for a premium consumer culinary equipment manufacturer based in Chicago, Illinois. It is the third quarter of 2026, and the primary short-form video application that traditionally drove 70% of their inbound web traffic unexpectedly alters its underlying recommendation algorithm. Overnight, the brand experiences a catastrophic 90% drop in organic video reach. This is not a hypothetical fear. Historical trends indicate these massive algorithmic corrections occur roughly every 18 to 24 months across all major networks. If Rachel had only focused on vanity metrics, the company would immediately enter a massive revenue crisis, potentially leading to immediate layoffs within the marketing department. However, Rachel had spent her first 6 months implementing a ruthless audience extraction protocol. She did not ask viewers to join a mailing list. Instead, she developed a proprietary digital recipe scaling calculator specifically designed for high-end meal preparation. During the peak of their algorithmic virality, every single video featured a seamless transition directing viewers to utilize this free calculator. To access the tool, consumers willingly provided their email address, their mobile phone number, and crucial zero-party data, including their primary dietary restrictions and average household size. When the algorithm inevitably crashed, Rachel did not panic, nor did she desperately attempt to appease the new platform rules with chaotic content. Instead, she completely bypassed the social media ecosystem. She possessed a proprietary database of over 200,000 highly qualified, segmented consumers. She deployed a highly targeted, automated short message service campaign directly to the mobile phones of users who had specifically indicated an interest in large-scale meal preparation, offering an exclusive, time-sensitive bundle on their commercial-grade food processors. The potential outcomes of this own media strategy are staggering. Despite the total collapse of their public social media visibility, the company actually reported a record-breaking quarter for direct-to-consumer revenue. Rachel mathematically proved to the executive board that the social media department was no longer just a top-of-funnel awareness engine. It was a highly insulated, risk-mitigated corporate asset capable of generating massive revenue, entirely independent of external platform volatility. Executing this level of extraction requires meticulous technical architecture. You must become deeply proficient in customer relationship management software and omnichannel communication platforms. When a user clicks a secure external link in a social media biography or types a specific trigger word in a direct message, they must be instantly routed into an automated sequence that feels entirely organic and highly personalized. If you ask for too much information up front, the friction becomes overwhelming and the conversion rate plummets. If you ask for too little, you lack the necessary data to personalize the subsequent marketing campaigns, rendering the extraction entirely useless. The master social media manager understands the delicate balance of progressive profiling, strategically asking for small incremental pieces of data over a prolonged period of interaction, rather than demanding a massive form fill on the very first interaction. Furthermore, the most sophisticated digital strategists in the United States are currently moving beyond simple email and text message extraction, pioneering the development of gated, brand-owned microcommunities. They are utilizing proprietary software platforms to build private digital ecosystems where their most fanatical consumers can interact directly with the brand founders, participate in exclusive product development polls, and connect with other like-minded individuals. Consider the strategic advantage of a fitness apparel company in Austin, Texas, that completely stops trying to foster community in the chaotic, toxic comment sections of public video platforms. Instead, they migrate their top 1% of customers into a private, application-based community board. In this heavily moderated, owned environment, organic reach is essentially 100% because there is no algorithm deliberately hiding the content to extort advertising revenue. The community becomes a self-sustaining ecosystem of brand loyalty, where the consumers themselves begin generating high-quality testimonials, troubleshooting product issues for new members, and fiercely defending the corporate narrative. The social media manager transitions from a stressed content creator desperately chasing platform trends into a powerful community architect overseeing a highly lucrative, proprietary digital nation. When you present this comprehensive extraction strategy to a chief executive officer, you are speaking directly to their deepest corporate anxieties. You are essentially offering them a comprehensive insurance policy against algorithmic destruction and platform obsolescence. You are transforming their marketing department from a massive, unpredictable liability into a stable, highly predictable financial fortress. By mastering the intricate mechanics of zero-party data collection, automated omnichannel routing, and gated community architecture, you elevate your professional value far beyond the scope of a traditional employee. You become an irreplaceable linchpin in the entire corporate revenue structure. However, achieving this elite level of operational dominance introduces a completely new, highly complex professional dilemma. You have successfully navigated the brutal interview process, survived the high-pressure probationary period, repaired the broken digital infrastructure, and built a massive, mathematically predictable revenue engine that is fully insulated from algorithmic volatility. The corporate executives are thrilled, the sales team is overwhelmed with highly qualified leads, and the company is experiencing unprecedented financial growth directly because of the specific systems you personally engineered. Yet, as you sit at your remote desk reviewing the quarterly financial statements, a harsh, undeniable reality begins to set in. You are generating millions of dollars in highly measurable recurring corporate revenue, but you are still being compensated with a flat, static W-2 baseline salary. You have built a machine that runs almost entirely on autonomous artificial intelligence agents and automated extraction funnels, requiring only a few hours of actual maintenance per week, yet you are still contractually tethered to a 40-hour corporate structure. You have successfully conquered the internal corporate ecosystem, but you are now structurally trapped within it, drastically underpaid relative to the massive economic value you are creating. How exactly do you break free from the traditional employee matrix without burning the valuable professional bridges you just spent months building? How do you mathematically leverage your undeniable internal success to successfully transition from an overworked corporate employee into a highly compensated, fiercely independent fractional chief marketing officer commanding equity, revenue-sharing agreements, and complete temporal freedom? The transition from a salaried corporate employee to a fiercely independent fractional chief marketing officer is arguably the most delicate and lucrative negotiation you will ever execute in your professional career. To successfully execute this maneuver in the highly volatile American corporate landscape of 2026, you must first completely understand the macroeconomic pressures currently terrorizing executive boards. Companies are actively desperately trying to trim bloated internal payrolls, reduce exorbitant employee healthcare benefit packages, and minimize their exposure to massive severance liabilities. The traditional executive model is rapidly evolving, and corporate leadership is actively seeking ways to convert fixed operational expenses into variable, performance-based investments. You must utilize this specific macroeconomic reality to your absolute advantage. You do not walk into the chief executive officer's office and abruptly threaten to quit or issue an emotional ultimatum. Instead, you present a highly logical, mathematically undeniable corporate restructuring proposal that fundamentally removes their financial risk, while simultaneously uncapping your personal earning potential. Imagine a highly analytical 29-year-old digital strategist named Daniel, currently working for a prominent national logistics software enterprise headquartered in Chicago, Illinois. Daniel has spent his first 18 months on the job meticulously building a flawless zero-party data extraction funnel. His system now runs almost entirely on automated behavioral triggers, predictive machine learning models, and sophisticated omni-channel communication sequences. The digital infrastructure is highly stable and wildly profitable. However, Daniel realizes a brutal truth about his daily existence. He is spending 35 hours a week sitting in deeply inefficient corporate alignment meetings, navigating useless internal politics and managing administrative red tape, while his automated digital systems are silently generating millions of dollars in qualified pipeline revenue in the background. He is trading his finite, irreplaceable time for a static $140,000 salary, completely divorced from the actual massive financial value he is creating for the shareholders. Daniel decides to execute the fractional pivot. He spends 2 weeks compiling a ruthless, data-driven performance audit of his entire tenure. He mathematically proves that his specific architectural implementations have generated a 400% return on his base salary over the trailing 12 months. He then requests a private meeting with the chief executive officer and the chief financial officer. Daniel does not ask for a raise. In fact, he proposes taking a massive baseline pay cut. He offers to transition from a full-time, W-2 employee into an independent, 1099 fractional consultant. He proposes reducing his fixed corporate cost from a $140,000 salary plus $50,000 in corporate benefits down to a flat $90,000 annual retainer. In exchange for saving the company $100,000 in guaranteed fixed overhead, Daniel asks for 3 non-negotiable terms. First, he requires complete location independence and total exemption from all internal corporate meetings that do not directly involve executive quarterly reporting. Second, he requires a legally binding 2% revenue share on all net new enterprise sales directly attributed to his specific, automated digital extraction funnels. Third, he retains the intellectual property rights to the foundational frameworks he built, allowing him to deploy similar, non-competing structures elsewhere in the future. When the chief financial officer reviews this proposal, they do not see an arrogant employee making demands. They see an immediate, massive reduction in corporate overhead and a digital vendor who is now directly, fiercely incentivized by actual top-line revenue growth. It is an incredibly sophisticated, risk-mitigated proposition for the enterprise. Daniel successfully transitions into a fractional role. The potential outcomes of this specific restructuring are completely transformative. Because Daniel is now earning a percentage of the revenue generated by his scalable, automated systems, his annual income rapidly eclipses his previous corporate salary, often doubling or tripling within the first fiscal year, while his actual hours worked drop to perhaps 10 highly focused hours per week. He has successfully detached his income from his time, transitioning from a managed operational cost into an autonomous profit center. However, structuring this specific agreement requires extreme precision and a deep understanding of digital attribution models. You cannot simply accept a generic corporate vendor contract. You must explicitly define exactly how a sale is attributed to your social media efforts, or the corporate accounting department will inevitably find ways to exclude your leads from your commission ledger. If a potential customer discovers the brand through an organic search-optimized video you engineered, enters your automated mobile messaging sequence, and eventually converts 90 days later after speaking to a human sales representative, you must have the legal and technical architecture in place to ensure that specific transaction is explicitly, undeniably credited to your performance tracking dashboard. Historical trends show that independent consultants who fail to implement third-party, Mathematically rigorous attribution software often lose tens of thousands of dollars in earned revenue share simply because they trusted the internal corporate sales team to manually report the lead source. You must secure administrative access to the primary customer relationship management software and deploy independent tracking protocols to verify every single transaction. Consider another powerful case study involving a digital professional named Olivia, based in Miami, Florida. Olivia spent 2 years successfully scaling the digital presence of a rapidly growing direct-to-consumer luxury furniture brand. When she executed her fractional pivot in early 2026, she realized the company was aggressively positioning itself for an external corporate buyout within the next 24 months. Instead of negotiating a standard revenue share, Olivia opted for a highly aggressive equity vesting schedule. She agreed to a minimal monthly fractional retainer to cover her basic living expenses, but she legally secured a percentage of corporate equity that vested based on specific, highly ambitious social media acquisition milestones. She tied her equity directly to driving down the overall customer acquisition cost below a specific threshold. When the furniture brand was inevitably acquired by a massive global retail conglomerate in late 2026, Olivia's fractional equity translated into a massive, multi-million-dollar liquidation event. She did not just earn a high salary, she participated in the generational wealth creation of a corporate exit. These are the extraordinary potential outcomes available when you stop thinking like a replaceable corporate employee protecting a job title and start thinking like a specialized digital architect trading measurable business impact for tangible corporate ownership. You have now successfully engineered the ultimate professional escape velocity. You have detached your highly valuable time from your income stream. You have secured a lucrative fractional retainer and a performance-based, mathematically tracked upside with your primary enterprise client. You have achieved complete temporal freedom, absolute location independence, and deep financial alignment with actual business growth. But basic human ambition and market economics dictate that you will absolutely not stop at one single client. You now possess the exact proven blueprint to rapidly scale this highly lucrative operation. Because you only need to dedicate roughly 10 hours a week to maintain your primary client's automated systems, you have the immediate bandwidth to take on 3, 4, or even 5 fractional enterprise clients simultaneously, potentially pushing your localized annual income deep into the 7-figure range. However, this highly aggressive, multi-client expansion immediately introduces a catastrophic operational bottleneck. If you attempt to manually service 5 distinct, highly demanding enterprise ecosystems using the exact same solitary manual workflow you use to service one, your operational capacity will violently and spectacularly collapse within 3 weeks. You will begin missing critical executive reporting deadlines, your sophisticated automated funnels will experience unnoticed technical breakdowns, and you will face severe legal and reputational repercussions from angry, powerful corporate boards who feel they are no longer receiving your undivided strategic attention. The transition from a solo fractional executive to a multi-client digital powerhouse requires an entirely new set of highly advanced, heavily automated operational protocols. How exactly do you scale a highly specialized fractional digital consultancy without falling into the traditional agency trap of hiring a massive, expensive team of junior employees? And what exact bleeding-edge artificial intelligence automation systems must you aggressively deploy to flawlessly manage 5 complex enterprise ecosystems simultaneously without ever losing your mind? The answer to flawlessly managing 5 complex enterprise ecosystems simultaneously without ever losing your mind lies in completely rejecting the traditional, bloated advertising agency model. For the past 2 decades, when a freelance digital marketer reached their maximum human capacity, the standard historical trend was to lease a physical office space and hire a small army of junior account coordinators. This outdated scaling method is financially catastrophic in 2026. The moment you hire traditional human employees to manage your overflow, you instantly inherit massive payroll liabilities, complex human resources compliance issues, and most dangerously, a severe degradation in the actual quality of your strategic output. Your high-paying enterprise clients did not sign a fractional contract to have their delicate digital communities managed by an inexperienced 22-year-old intern. They signed that contract specifically to gain access to your elite, senior-level cognitive architecture. If they discover you have secretly outsourced their brand to a junior employee, they will terminate your contract immediately for a fundamental breach of trust. Therefore, the modern scaling solution does not involve hiring more human hands. It involves aggressively deploying a centralized, omni-channel artificial intelligence command center that effectively clones your strategic decision-making process. Imagine, if you will, a highly sought-after fractional digital strategist named Christopher, operating out of a home office in Dallas, Texas, in the current year 2026. Christopher successfully manages the entire social media infrastructure for 4 massive, non-competing enterprise clients simultaneously. He oversees a prominent telehealth provider, a regional commercial banking institution, a massive cybersecurity software firm, and a luxury real estate brokerage. If Christopher attempted to manually log into 4 different corporate email accounts, monitor 20 different native social media application dashboards, and manually compile weekly performance spreadsheets for 4 different executive boards, his cognitive load would trigger a complete psychological collapse within 14 days. Instead, Christopher leverages the immense power of agentic workflow automation. He utilizes a singular, hyper-secure, third-party command interface that integrates directly into the application programming interfaces of all 4 of his clients. This centralized command center is not a simple scheduling tool. It is a highly advanced, predictive analytics engine. Every morning, Christopher does not waste 3 hours manually scrolling through timelines to gauge audience sentiment. His artificial intelligence agents have already processed every single comment, direct message, and brand mention across all 4 enterprise ecosystems while he was sleeping. The system uses advanced natural language processing to categorize these interactions into specific, actionable data streams. It automatically filters out standard customer service inquiries, routing those directly to the respective internal corporate support teams without ever requiring Christopher's attention. The system only flags highly specific strategic anomalies for his human review. For example, if the artificial intelligence detects a sudden, 30% spike in negative sentiment regarding a specific software update for his cybersecurity client, it immediately generates an executive alert. Christopher logs in, reviews the localized data, crafts a precise strategic response protocol, and pushes that protocol back through the automated system. He manages the crisis for a multi-million-dollar corporation in exactly 12 minutes, completely asynchronously, and then immediately pivots his attention to his commercial banking client. The true genius of this operational model lies in the deployment of asynchronous executive communication and ruthless boundary setting. When you transition into a multi-client fractional role, the greatest threat to your profitability is not content creation. It is the incessant, unstructured communication demands of anxious corporate executives. If you allow 4 different chief executive officers to call your personal mobile phone at any hour of the day to discuss minor algorithmic fluctuations, you are no longer a highly paid consultant. You are simply an underpaid employee with 4 incredibly demanding bosses. You must establish strict, heavily enforced service-level agreements the moment you sign the fractional contract. Christopher, for instance, explicitly dictates in his master service agreement that he does not attend live weekly alignment meetings. He mathematically proved to his clients that live meetings are an inefficient use of his expensive retainer. Instead, Christopher utilizes advanced screen recording and data visualization software to generate a highly polished, 10-minute asynchronous video briefing for each client every Friday morning. In this recorded briefing, he walks the executive board through the specific, automated dashboard metrics, explains the strategic adjustments his artificial intelligence agents executed during the week, and clearly outlines the conversion pipeline projections for the following week. The corporate executives receive exactly what they actually desire, which is clear, authoritative visibility into their return on investment, without ever forcing Christopher to align his calendar with a bloated corporate meeting schedule. If an executive has a follow-up question, they submit it through a dedicated, asynchronous communication portal, and Christopher responds within a guaranteed 24-hour window. By forcing all corporate communication through this highly structured, asynchronous bottleneck, Christopher actively protects his deep, focused work hours, allowing him to effortlessly manage 4 massive digital infrastructures in less than 25 total hours a week. Furthermore, scaling to multiple enterprise clients requires a complete overhaul of how you approach content production and micronarrative architecture. You cannot manually script, shoot, and edit original daily content for 5 different industries. You must transition into a role of a high-level creative director managing programmatic content repurposing. The modern fractional manager relies heavily on synthetic voice generation, automated video editing models, and dynamic template rendering. For his commercial banking client, Christopher conducts one single, highly structured, 45-minute remote interview with their chief economist every single month. He then feeds that raw long-form video file into a highly specialized artificial intelligence editing model. He instructs the model to identify the most compelling financial predictions, slice the footage into 20 distinct short-form video assets, automatically generate highly engaging, search-optimized closed captions, and format the aspect ratios for every major social distribution platform. A task that would have historically required a full-time, human video editing team 3 weeks to complete is now executed by a sophisticated machine learning model in under 12 minutes. Christopher simply reviews the final outputs for brand safety and strategic alignment, approves the batch, and pushes it into his automated distribution pipeline. Let us analyze the strict financial mathematics of this paradigm shift. Under the legacy agency model of previous years, if a digital marketer secured 5 enterprise clients at $10,000 a month each, they generated $50,000 in gross monthly revenue. However, to service those $50,000, they had to lease a commercial office for $5,000, hire 3 junior account managers for $15,000, purchase complex software licenses for $2,000, and pay immense corporate taxes. Their actual take-home profit margin rarely exceeded 20%, leaving them with roughly $10,000 a month while managing immense human resources stress and constant employee turnover. In stark contrast, the 2026 fractional architect, utilizing our aggressive artificial intelligence blueprint, secures the exact same 5 enterprise clients for $50,000 in gross monthly revenue. But because their entire operational infrastructure consists of advanced software subscriptions costing perhaps $800 a month, and they have absolutely zero human employees, their actual profit margin hovers around 98%. They are retaining nearly $49,000 a month in pure liquid profit. They have completely decoupled their earning potential from traditional operational friction, creating a hyper-profitable, highly resilient microenterprise that easily outmaneuvers large, sluggish advertising agencies. This level of supreme operational efficiency is only possible when you fully embrace the reality that your primary job is no longer community management. It is system engineering. You must view every single repetitive task in your daily workflow as a critical failure of automation. If you find yourself manually typing the same weekly performance summary to a client, you are actively losing money and wasting cognitive bandwidth. You must build custom predictive reporting dashboards using advanced data visualization software. These dashboards connect directly to the application programming interfaces of the social networks and the client's internal customer relationship management software. They dynamically update in real time, completely eliminating the need for manual spreadsheet data entry. When the chief executive officer of the luxury real estate brokerage wants to know exactly how many qualified leads the social media department generated over the weekend, they do not email Christopher and wait for a response. They simply open their secure dashboard link on their mobile device and view the mathematically verified pipeline velocity, instantly calculated by the software. You are training the executives to rely on the infallible mathematical data provided by your systems rather than relying on your continuous human presence. This highly automated, asynchronously managed fractional structure is the absolute pinnacle of the modern social media management profession in the United States. You have successfully bypassed the traditional resume system, secured massive executive buy-in, built fully insulated data extraction funnels, and scaled your operations to multiple enterprise clients using advanced artificial intelligence, pushing your personal financial outcome into the upper echelons of the modern digital economy. You are entirely location independent, highly respected, and deeply embedded in the revenue architecture of major American corporations. However, achieving this level of unprecedented professional freedom and financial leverage exposes you to one final catastrophic vulnerability that nobody in the traditional digital marketing space ever discusses. You are now a highly visible, highly compensated external vendor handling massive amounts of proprietary corporate data, sensitive zero-party consumer information, and critical public relations infrastructure. You are operating in a deeply litigious corporate environment where a single misunderstood algorithmic error, one highly publicized data breach within your automated extraction funnels, or one poorly worded non-compete clause in your master service agreement can instantly result in a devastating multi-million-dollar corporate lawsuit designed to completely liquidate your personal assets. How exactly do you construct an impenetrable legal fortress around your new fractional empire to ensure that one single angry corporate board cannot fundamentally destroy your entire life's work? The precise construction of this impenetrable legal fortress begins with a fundamental psychological acceptance that you are no longer a protected corporate citizen. When you transition into a highly compensated fractional executive in the modern landscape of 2026, you completely forfeit the massive, invisible legal shield historically provided by a traditional employer. You are now a standalone commercial entity operating in one of the most litigious business environments in human history. Corporate boards are actively searching for external scapegoats the moment a digital campaign fails or a data privacy scandal emerges. If you enter this high-stakes arena operating as a simple sole proprietor, casually accepting wire transfers into your personal checking account based on a handshake agreement or a generic vendor template downloaded from the internet, you are essentially playing financial roulette with your entire future. A single algorithmic mistake or an unforeseen artificial intelligence hallucination could result in a catastrophic lawsuit that permanently liquidates your personal savings, your investments, and your home. You must immediately construct a rigorous three-tiered defensive perimeter that fully insulates your personal life from your professional corporate actions. Imagine a tragic scenario involving a highly talented fractional strategist named Marcus, operating out of Atlanta, Georgia, in the current year 2026. Marcus successfully scaled his independent operation to 3 massive enterprise clients, including a regional private healthcare network. He engineered a highly sophisticated, automated zero-party data extraction funnel using conversational artificial intelligence to help the healthcare network acquire new high-net-worth patients. However, Marcus failed to consult a legal professional to properly structure his commercial entity, and he utilized a generic, outdated independent contractor agreement. During a massive platform algorithm update, the third-party artificial intelligence integration experienced a critical routing error, inadvertently exposing a small segment of sensitive consumer intake data to the wrong internal corporate department. This triggered a massive regulatory audit under strict modern digital privacy frameworks. The healthcare executive board instantly panicked, immediately terminated Marcus, and deployed their massive corporate legal team to sue him for gross negligence and breach of contract, seeking millions of dollars in corporate damages. Because Marcus was operating as a sole proprietor, there was absolutely no legal distinction between his business liabilities and his personal assets. The corporate attorneys systematically targeted his personal bank accounts and his real estate equity. Marcus lost his entire business and his personal financial stability over a software routing error he did not directly commit. This case study illustrates the absolute, undeniable necessity of deploying the first tier of your legal fortress, which is aggressive corporate asset segregation. Historical trends in modern legal structures clearly indicate that the absolute baseline requirement for operating a fractional digital consultancy is the immediate formation of a formal corporate entity, typically a limited liability company or an S-corporation, depending on your specific state jurisdiction and macroeconomic tax strategy. You must legally completely sever your personal identity from your professional operations. Your fractional business must have its own dedicated federal tax identification number, completely separate corporate banking infrastructure, and distinct accounting software. When an enterprise client signs a contract, they are not hiring you as an individual human being. They are retaining the services of your legally registered corporate entity. If a massive data crisis occurs and a corporate board attempts to file a lawsuit, they are legally forced to sue your corporate entity, theoretically protecting your personal assets from the blast radius, assuming you have perfectly maintained your corporate veil and never commingled personal and business funds. This is purely an educational framework, and viewers must consult licensed corporate attorneys and certified public accountants to architect this specific corporate structure safely, but the underlying business principle remains absolutely mandatory for survival. The second tier of your defensive perimeter involves heavily weaponizing your corporate insurance stack. General liability insurance is completely insufficient for the complex digital architecture you are building in 2026. You are handling massive volumes of proprietary corporate data, intellectual property, and zero-party consumer profiles. You must secure specialized errors and omissions insurance, specifically tailored for high-level digital marketing consultants and data architects. This specific policy is designed to cover the staggering legal defense costs and potential settlement fees if a client accuses you of failing to deliver on the promised scope of work or making a critical strategic error that resulted in a measurable loss of corporate revenue. Furthermore, because your entire operational model relies on automated artificial intelligence agents and third-party software integrations, you must secure comprehensive cyber liability insurance. If one of your automated extraction funnels is compromised by a malicious external actor, resulting in a severe corporate data breach for your enterprise client, Your cyber liability policy becomes the ultimate financial firewall, covering the massive costs of digital forensics, regulatory fines, and public relations mitigation. Without these two specific, hyper-modern insurance policies aggressively shielding your corporate entity, you are entirely too fragile to manage multi-million-dollar digital ecosystems. The third and final tier of your impenetrable legal fortress is the complete overhaul of your master service agreement. You can absolutely never allow an enterprise client to dictate the terms of your engagement using their standard corporate vendor paperwork. Their internal legal department will intentionally draft those documents to shift 100% of the operational liability directly onto your shoulders. You must provide your own meticulously drafted master service agreement, engineered by a specialized technology attorney. This document must explicitly define the exact parameters of your automated attribution models, legally cementing exactly how a sale is tracked and credited to your revenue-sharing ledger, preventing the corporate accounting department from ever withholding your earned commissions. Most importantly, your agreement must contain an aggressive limitation of liability clause. This critical legal mechanism explicitly caps your total potential financial exposure in the event of a lawsuit to the exact amount of fees the client has paid you over the trailing 3 to 6 months. It mathematically prevents an angry corporate board from seeking $10 million in abstract brand damages over a simple automated posting error. Additionally, you must include a strict indemnification clause regarding artificial intelligence generation. You must force the client to legally sign off on the specific guardrails of the AI models you deploy, ensuring that if an automated agent generates a controversial response, the corporate entity assumes the final editorial liability, completely releasing you from the crosshairs of a public relations disaster. By systematically establishing a segregated corporate entity, heavily layering specialized digital insurance policies, and forcing enterprise clients to operate entirely under your fiercely defensive master service agreement, you completely neutralize the existential threats of the modern fractional landscape. You have now reached the absolute pinnacle of the 2026 social media industry. You possess the strategic psychological frameworks to capture human attention, the deep analytical skills to build automated, algorithmic revenue engines, and the corporate leverage to negotiate massive multi-client fractional equity structures without ever managing a physical office or hiring a massive team. You have successfully engineered an impenetrable, highly lucrative digital machine that dramatically outpaces the earning potential of legacy corporate executives, entirely on your own terms. But this unprecedented level of operational success immediately triggers the final, most complex challenge of your entire professional existence. You have spent your entire journey learning exactly how to capture immense amounts of capital from major American corporations, and your corporate bank accounts are now swelling with massive, recurring fractional retainers and automated revenue share deposits. But aggressively generating 7 figures of liquid corporate cash flow is a fundamentally different cognitive discipline than preserving, shielding, and multiplying that wealth in a highly volatile macroeconomic environment. How exactly do you deploy this massive influx of new capital to systematically escape the brutal taxation brackets of 2026, completely transition from a high-income earner into a multi-generational wealth architect, and permanently remove yourself from the active labor force altogether?